Hello, and welcome to English Without Limits. I'm Julia, and here on this podcast, we share stories, conversations, and everyday moments to help you improve your English naturally. In today's episode, we'll explore daily life, friends, routines, and small but meaningful stories. Each one will give you listening practice and expressions you can use in your own conversations. So sit back, relax, and let's begin. Let me start with a story about my friend David. Recently, he decided to change his mornings completely. Now, he wakes up at 6 o'clock, drinks a glass of water, and spends 20 minutes stretching. He says this helps him feel more awake and focused. One morning, I visited him. He looked calm, fresh, and happy, so different from the tired way he used to start the day. After stretching, David makes a healthy breakfast, usually eggs, toast, and green tea. He also told me that planning meals ahead saves him a lot of stress. He laughed and said he used to waste more time deciding what to eat than actually cooking. That small change transformed his whole day. Now let's move to friendships. Last Saturday, my husband and I met our friends Sarah and Michael in the park. Sarah had just bought a new bicycle and couldn't wait to try it out. Michael, who loves running, suggested we go for a short jog first. We ended up doing both. Sarah gave me cycling tips, and I shared some stretching exercises with her. While in the park, we noticed a group of people planting flowers. It was a community project to make the park more beautiful. Michael said it reminded him of his childhood, when he and his father would plant flowers every weekend. I felt inspired, and later decided to join the project myself. It felt good to do something small that could make a difference. Now let's talk about daily routines, like grocery shopping. Last Wednesday, I went to the supermarket with my husband. I always make a list before shopping. It saves time and money. But my husband prefers to walk around and choose whatever looks fresh. Sometimes he finds things I never would have thought of, like new vegetables or interesting spices. In the end, combining both methods makes shopping both efficient and fun. Speaking of food, my neighbor, Mr. Thomas, has a small garden where he grows tomatoes and herbs. One morning, he invited me to pick fresh basil for my pasta. While I was there, he explained how watering plants in the morning is better than at night. He also said that talking to plants helps them grow faster. I found it funny, but I tried it, and my herbs are thriving. Now let's move on to transportation. Last Friday, I took the bus to visit my husband's workplace. I discovered a new app that shows buses in real time. When they arrive, how full they are. It made the commute so much easier. While waiting, I ran into an old friend from school, Lisa. We hadn't seen each other in years. We caught up about our families, jobs, and hobbies. That short meeting reminded me how small encounters can brighten your day. At home, we also face little challenges. Last weekend, my husband tried fixing a leaky faucet. At first, it looked simple, but soon we realized the pipe was old and needed a new part. We went to the hardware store, and the owner gave us useful advice to prevent future leaks. It took us a couple of hours, but in the end, the faucet was fixed, and we had learned something new. Let's continue with learning new skills. My friend Julia recently started baking bread. At first, she thought it was too difficult, but one evening she invited me to try her very first loaf. It wasn't perfect, but it smelled amazing and tasted delicious. She told me that learning step by step, even when it feels hard, gives her a real sense of achievement. Listening to her, I felt motivated to try baking cookies next weekend. Now let's talk about technology. Every morning, my husband reads the news on his tablet, while I use mine to plan meals and schedules. One day, we switched. I read the news and he did the meal planning. It was fun to see things from each other's perspective, and it gave us a fresh look at our routines. We also recently reorganized our living room. We moved the furniture, cleaned the shelves, and added a few small plants. Suddenly, the space felt brighter and more welcoming. My husband suggested creating a little reading corner by the window. Now, every evening, we sit there with a cup of tea, reading or planning the week. A small change in the environment truly lifts your mood. Here's another story I love. My friend Peter invited us to cook for a community event. Together, we chopped vegetables, stirred sauces, and prepared meals for local families. It was hard work, but also so much fun. At the end of the day, watching people enjoy the food we had made, I felt proud. Helping others, even in small ways, brings joy and connection. Talking about shopping again, last weekend we visited a farmer's market. There were fruits, vegetables, bread, and cheese. We met a farmer, Mr. Lee, who explained how he grows his vegetables without chemicals. We bought tomatoes, carrots, and honey. On the way home, we talked about how buying fresh and local food is not only healthier, but also supports the community. Let's move to hobbies. My friend Sophia recently started calligraphy. She showed me how she uses a brush pen to draw beautiful letters. She said it requires patience and helps her relax. I tried it too, though it was tricky. I enjoyed the process. Creative hobbies like this help us slow down and focus. Now, let's talk about finances. Recently, my husband and I started tracking our monthly expenses. We made a simple chart for groceries, bills, and savings. At first, it felt tedious, but soon we noticed patterns and ways to save. Small steps like this reduce stress and bring financial stability. Speaking of conversations, last Tuesday I had a long call with my friend Mark. He had just moved to a new city and shared his experiences about finding an apartment, meeting neighbors, and learning the transport system. I gave him a few tips, and in return, I learned about his new life. Conversations like this not only strengthen friendships, but also give us natural English practice. Now, about home routines. One afternoon, my husband and I cleaned the kitchen thoroughly, organizing cabinets, scrubbing surfaces, and washing dishes. While cleaning, we talked about ways to avoid clutter. Simple routines like this may seem small, but they make daily life more peaceful and less stressful. Another little story. Last weekend, we baked a cake. The first try was messy, we forgot a few steps, but we laughed, tried again, and the second cake turned out perfectly. That reminded us that mistakes are just part of the process. With patience, learning becomes more enjoyable. Let's talk about nature. Last Sunday, we went for a hike near a small forest. The air was fresh, the trees tall, and birds were singing. We even discovered a quiet stream. Spending time outdoors cleared our minds and reminded us of the importance of slowing down. And of course, small celebrations matter too. Last Friday, my husband and I celebrated our wedding anniversary at home. We cooked dinner, lit candles, and shared memories. No fancy restaurants or gifts, just time together. And that made it truly special. Before we finish, let me share a cooking story. My friend Olivia sent me her recipe for homemade pasta. I followed the steps, and although my first attempt wasn't perfect, the taste was amazing. My husband helped me roll the dough. We laughed the whole time. Cooking with friends' advice is a wonderful way to learn, practice English, and enjoy food together. And one last story about travel. Recently, we tried a new bus route to a nearby town. The trip was smooth, and along the way, we practiced asking for directions and buying tickets politely. Experiences like these make us more confident in both travel and language. Hello again, and welcome back. I'm Julia, and this is Without Limit English. Together, we're practicing English through real stories, daily routines, and conversations. Today, I want to share more simple stories from daily life that can help you learn naturally. Let's begin with family. My husband and I recently organized a family day. We invited his brother and his family for a picnic in the park. We packed sandwiches, juice, and some games for the children. Everyone laughed, played, and enjoyed time together. Watching everyone interact reminded me how important teamwork and connection are in family life. Spending time with family teaches patience, understanding, and appreciation. Now, let's move to small surprises. Last week, my husband brought home fresh flowers for the living room. It was unexpected, but it made me smile immediately. The flowers added color and a fresh scent to our home. Small gestures like this can brighten a day more than any expensive gift. I also want to talk about reading. I started a biography of a famous scientist. The book explained how small experiments and even mistakes led to big discoveries. While reading, I realized that persistence and curiosity are key to learning. My husband read part of it too, and we shared our thoughts together. Talking about books helps build vocabulary, comprehension, and critical thinking. Let's talk about friends and teamwork. Last Thursday, my friend Henry invited us to help him paint his new office. We prepared brushes, colors, and protective sheets. While painting, we chatted about work, hobbies, and future plans. By the end of the day, the office looked great and we all felt proud. Small projects like this teach communication, cooperation, and creativity. Now, let's move to breakfast. Last Monday, my husband and I tried a new recipe, oatmeal with fresh fruit and nuts. I thought it would be too simple, but it turned out delicious. While cooking, we talked about how important it is to start the day with a healthy meal. We also planned our week ahead, and breakfast became a calm, useful time. Talking about technology, my husband showed me a new app for learning English. The app lets you listen to conversations, record your voice, and check pronunciation. I tried reading a short story aloud, then listened to my own recording. My husband gave me feedback, and I noticed quick improvements. Using technology like this makes learning interactive and fun. Now, a story about the library. Last Saturday, we visited our local library. It was quiet, peaceful, and full of interesting books. I chose a travel book, and my husband picked one about history. The librarian even gave us recommendations. Visiting the library is not only relaxing, but also a great way to discover new ideas. Let's switch to gardening. Recently, we started a small balcony garden. We planted tomatoes, lettuce, and herbs. Every morning, we water the plants and check for growth. Last week, we saw our first tiny tomatoes appear. Gardening teaches patience and gives a wonderful sense of achievement. Talking about neighbors, we recently met Mr. Allen, who just moved next door. He invited us to see his home and garden. We shared ideas about decoration and gave each other tips. Simple conversations like this help build a friendly community and create opportunities to practice casual English. Now, let's talk about public transportation. Last Thursday, my husband and I took the metro to see a new exhibition. We checked the schedule, planned the route, and discussed which exhibits we wanted to see. Traveling this way gave us a chance to practice asking questions and understanding announcements. It also reminded us how useful public transport can be for everyday life. I also want to share a story about cooking for friends. We invited Emma and James over for dinner. We prepared pasta with homemade sauce and a simple salad. There were small mistakes in the kitchen, but they made us laugh. Sharing a meal created natural conversation and made practicing English more enjoyable. Talking about hobbies, my husband started learning chess. At first, I didn't understand the strategies, but he explained them patiently. After a few games, I began to enjoy the challenge. Chess is great for patience, planning, and thinking skills. It also encourages communication as we discuss moves and strategies. Next, let's move to a home project. Last weekend, we repainted one wall in our living room. We chose a light blue color to make the space feel brighter. While painting, we talked about decoration ideas and where to put photos. The project was simple, but it made the room feel fresh and new. Now, a short walk story. One evening, we explored our neighborhood on foot. We discovered a bakery and a small shop selling handmade candles. As we walked, we practiced describing what we saw in English. Walking like this is good for health, but also helps build vocabulary. Let's talk about organizing time. Last Friday, my husband showed me how to keep a personal calendar. We wrote down appointments, tasks, and reminders. At first, it seemed tedious, but it really reduced stress. Planning together also improved our communication at home. Now, a story about a cafe. We visited a new one in our neighborhood. It had soft lighting, calm music, and a cozy atmosphere. While sipping coffee, we talked about how design changes the feeling of a space. Even reading the menu and asking questions gave us English practice. Talking about volunteering. Last month, we joined a small charity event. We arranged chairs, served drinks, and greeted guests. We met new people, heard different stories, and felt part of the community. Helping others is a wonderful way to learn language and build connections. Let's talk about local travel. Last weekend, we visited a small lake near the city. We took a boat ride, fed ducks, and walked along the shore. While relaxing, we compared it to past trips and shared memories. Spending time outdoors gives both joy and learning opportunities. Another cooking story. My husband found a recipe for vegetable stir-fry. We gathered fresh vegetables, cooked rice, and followed the steps carefully. At first, it looked complicated, but working together made it fun. The dish turned out delicious, and we even talked about ways to improve it next time. Now, let's talk about celebrations. Last Tuesday, we celebrated a friend's promotion with a video call. We prepared a small cake and sent a message. During the call, we shared stories and laughed together. Even virtual celebrations create warm memories and strengthen friendships. Talking about chores. Last Saturday, we cleaned the windows. We used soapy water, soft cloths, and shared little tips. While working, we talked about our plans for the week. Even simple cleaning becomes enjoyable when done together. Let's move to weekend planning. We made a list of activities, a park visit, cooking lunch, and watching the sunset. Planning together gave us something to look forward to, and the day felt special. Now, a short bakery story. We explored a new bakery in our neighborhood. The smell of bread filled the air. I chose a croissant, and my husband picked sourdough. Sitting outside, we enjoyed the food and talked about how trying new places brings joy. Talking about home organization, we focused on the kitchen drawers. We sorted utensils and gadgets, then labeled each section. It made finding things much easier. While working, we practiced words for kitchen items in English. Now, photography. My husband loves capturing nature, so we visited the park with our cameras. We took photos of trees, flowers, and the river. We talked about angles, light, and framing. Describing what we saw was a great English exercise. Now, let's talk about transportation. Last Friday, my husband and I decided to try a bicycle sharing service to visit a nearby town. While riding, we talked about safety tips, traffic rules, and the route we plan to take. Exploring new paths not only makes the journey exciting, but it also helps us practice descriptive English and gives confidence in giving and receiving directions. And of course, it's a fun way to mix exercise with practical learning. Speaking of hobbies, my husband recently started learning some simple guitar chords. He invited me to join him, even though I had no experience. We practiced little melodies together and discussed techniques like finger positioning and strumming. Learning music as a team encourages patience, cooperation, and gives us natural chances to use English while describing actions and giving instructions. Now, let me share a story about a small home decoration project. We decided to rearrange our living room bookshelves and add a few decorative touches. While sorting books by size and category, we shared design ideas and color combinations. Small creative projects like this give us useful vocabulary for interior design while also bringing a sense of accomplishment and joy. Talking about local exploration. Last Saturday, we visited a small botanical garden. It was full of plants, flowers, and trees from all over the world. As we walked, my husband described details like texture, color, and shape. Observing nature like this helps practice descriptive language while also sharpening attention to detail in English conversations. Now, let's move on to food. Always a favorite topic. Recently, we tried making homemade dumplings. We prepared the dough, filled it with vegetables, and folded each piece carefully. While cooking, we discussed flavors and different methods of preparation. Trying new recipes together is not only delicious, but it's also a wonderful way to practice teamwork and English vocabulary. Talking about shopping experiences, last Sunday we went to a local market for fresh fruits. We compared prices, checked ripeness, and discussed ways to use them in meals. Shopping in this way helps us practice polite questions, descriptive words, and real-life English conversation. Now, let me take you on a quiet evening walk. We strolled through a residential street with small gardens and cozy houses. My husband pointed out the flowers, and I described the colors and shapes. Simple walks like this improve vocabulary, observation skills, and help us express ideas naturally in English. Speaking of home projects, last week we built a simple shelf for our balcony. We measured the space, cut the wood, and assembled it step by step. While working, we talked about tools, safety, and instructions. Hands-on projects like this make vocabulary practice meaningful while also improving teamwork and problem solving. Now, let's move into community life. Last month, we joined a local park cleanup event. We collected trash, planted flowers, and even painted benches. Along the way, we spoke with other participants and shared ideas about keeping the park beautiful. Community activities like these give wonderful opportunities to practice conversational English while also building connections with others. Talking about travel, last weekend we explored a small historic village nearby. We wandered narrow streets, visited shops, and spoke with locals about traditional crafts. Describing new places not only improves vocabulary, but also storytelling skills. And retelling the experience later is a great way to practice past tense naturally. Now, a quieter activity, reading together. Recently, my husband and I picked up a travel book. We took turns reading chapters aloud, then discussed the scenes and rephrased them in our own words. Reading together helps with pronunciation, comprehension, and learning to express ideas more clearly in English. And, of course, we can't forget exercise. Last Monday, we went for a morning jog in our neighborhood. We warmed up, ran for about 20 minutes, and stretched afterward. While jogging, we talked about health, weather, and personal goals. Exercise is a perfect chance to describe routines and share tips in everyday English. Now, on to small celebrations. Last Thursday, we joined an online party for a friend's promotion. We prepared some snacks, joined a video call, and shared congratulations. During the call, we exchanged stories, laughed at little jokes, and enjoyed the moment. Celebrating achievements, even virtually, is wonderful for practicing social English and expressing emotions naturally. Talking about home organization, last weekend we worked on our study area. We sorted books, arranged stationery, and cleaned the desks. My husband suggested labeling folders and creating a schedule for better focus. Organizing together provides lots of chances to practice practical vocabulary while planning tasks effectively. Now, let's go back to cooking. Last Sunday, we made pancakes with fresh fruit. While mixing and cooking, we discussed measurements, techniques, and even how to make the presentation look better. Cooking side by side creates natural conversation, teamwork, and vocabulary practice in a very tasty way. For outdoor activities, we recently went hiking in a nearby forest. The trail was calm, with birds singing and leaves rustling in the wind. We described the scenery, observed animals, and compared it to past hikes. Outdoor adventures help us build descriptive language, storytelling skills, and vocabulary about nature. Now, let's talk about learning new skills. My husband picked up sketching, and he invited me to join. While drawing, we talked about proportions, shading, and techniques. Practicing creative skills like this is not just fun, but it also introduces new English words in context. Last Tuesday, we visited a small local art gallery. The paintings from local artists were full of color and emotion. We walked slowly, pointing out our favorite pieces and describing the feelings they gave us. Talking about art helps practice descriptive English and improves how we explain our own thoughts. At home, we recently organized our pantry. We grouped grains, spices, and canned foods, and my husband suggested using clear containers. While arranging everything, we talked about meal planning and how organization saves time. Projects like this give practice in practical vocabulary and everyday planning. Now, another kitchen story, trying a new cooking method. My husband found a recipe for roasted vegetables with special spices. We prepared the vegetables, roasted them carefully, and experimented with flavors. Cooking like this improves teamwork, patience, and gives plenty of natural English conversation. For outdoor exploration, last Sunday we went to a small lake near the city. We walked along the shore, fed ducks, and took photos of the scenery. My husband described the clouds and reflections on the water. Observing and describing nature is an excellent way to strengthen vocabulary and narration skills. And finally, let's talk about new hobbies. Our friend Anna invited us to try pottery. She gave us clay and tools, and we shaped small bowls and cups. At first, it was tricky, but soon we enjoyed the process. Describing shapes, textures, and techniques gave us new vocabulary and chances to practice instructions naturally. And one last stop, local shopping. Last Thursday, we went to a farmer's market. We bought fresh vegetables, bread, and honey. While choosing, we discussed quality, taste, and meal ideas. Shopping in this way provides real opportunities to practice polite questions, descriptive words, and real-life English conversation. Welcome back to English Without Limit. I'm your host, Yulia, and in this part of our journey together, I want to share a series of simple stories and routines that not only enrich daily life, but also give us natural ways to practice English. Let's begin with a story about home exercise. My husband and I decided to try a short yoga session right in our living room. We followed along with a video, stretching carefully and focusing on our breathing. While exercising, we talked about different techniques, corrected our posture, and described how our bodies felt during each movement. Small routines like this don't just improve our health, they also provide natural opportunities to practice English conversation about actions, feelings, and body awareness. Now, let's shift to small travel experiences. Just last weekend, we visited a nearby village known for its traditional crafts. We watched skilled craftsmen making pottery and weaving baskets by hand. As we observed, my husband explained parts of the process, and I described the shapes, colors, and patterns of the items we saw. Experiences like this expand your vocabulary, improve comprehension, and allow you to practice conversation in a natural and enjoyable way. Another helpful practice comes from planning home meals. Last week, we created a weekly meal plan together. We listed breakfast, lunch, and dinner options, included snacks, and organized everything into a shopping list. While planning, we talked about ingredients, cooking methods, and personal preferences. This simple activity provides wonderful opportunities to use practical vocabulary and practice the language of decision-making. Reading is another daily habit we've been enjoying. Recently, my husband and I started a book about famous explorers. Each evening, we read one chapter and then discussed what we found most interesting. We described journeys, challenges, and discoveries using new words we had learned. Reading together like this strengthens comprehension, improves pronunciation, and builds your ability to narrate stories confidently in English. Let's move to small weekend adventures. Last Saturday, we went for a quiet walk along a countryside road. As we walked, we noticed birds, flowers, and even a few small animals. We described what we saw, shared memories of past walks, and even discussed ideas for future trips. Talking about your surroundings in this way helps you develop descriptive language and expand your vocabulary naturally. Home projects can also be a powerful way to practice. For example, last week, we built a small wooden table for our balcony. We measured, cut wood, and carefully assembled each part. During the project, we discussed tools, materials, and every step of the process, all in English. Hands-on projects like this improve practical vocabulary, teamwork, and problem-solving language, while also giving you a satisfying sense of accomplishment. Now, let's think about small acts of kindness. One morning, we helped our neighbor carry groceries upstairs. As we assisted, we spoke about our day and exchanged small stories. Acts of kindness not only make life brighter, but also provide excellent opportunities to practice polite and social English naturally. Let's return to hobbies. Recently, my husband and I tried sketching simple objects at home. We drew cups, vases, and small plants. While sketching, we talked about shapes, proportions, and shading techniques. Creative hobbies like this encourage observation, build descriptive vocabulary, and help you practice explaining processes clearly. One of my favorite moments was a quiet evening at home. We prepared tea and sat together on the balcony to watch the sunset. As we enjoyed the view, we described the colors, the clouds, and how the sky changed over time. Small moments like these are wonderful for practicing descriptive English, enhancing observation skills, and forming the habit of expressing thoughts naturally. Another story I want to share is about a local exploration. Last Sunday, we visited a small historic street in our town. The buildings had unique designs, and we noticed carved wooden doors and old, faded signs. My husband described the architecture and history, while I added details about the colors and textures of the items we saw. Exploring places like this help you practice storytelling, descriptive language, and cultural vocabulary. Cooking, of course, is always a great way to use English. Last week, we prepared simple sandwiches with fresh vegetables and cheese. As we made them, we discussed the ingredients, flavors, and even how to present them nicely on the plate. Simple cooking tasks provide natural teamwork opportunities and let you practice describing processes step by step. Another helpful activity was creating a daily routine. Recently, we designed a morning schedule that included stretching, breakfast, reading, and planning the day. While following this schedule, we discussed which activities we enjoyed most and how we could make mornings more efficient. Talking about routines is a practical way to improve organizational vocabulary and communication skills. One more experience I'd like to share is about a small local cafe. We discovered a quiet, cozy place decorated with handmade items. We ordered coffee and then talked about the decor, the menu, and the overall atmosphere. Visiting cafes and similar places gives you the chance to practice asking polite questions, describing surroundings, and sharing personal opinions in English. And finally, let's talk about outdoor hobbies. Last Saturday, we tried a bit of gardening together on our balcony. We planted flowers and small herbs in pots. As we worked, we discussed watering schedules, how much sunlight each plant needed, and even soil quality. Gardening, like many hobbies, naturally introduces you to new vocabulary while teaching you to describe everyday actions in English. Let's begin with small celebrations at home. Last Friday, we celebrated a friend's birthday by preparing a simple cake and sending a video message. While preparing, we talked about decorations, flavors, and presentation ideas. Small celebrations like this create wonderful chances to practice conversational English and to express emotions politely and clearly. Now, let's move to a short trip we took last Monday. My husband and I visited a nearby botanical garden. The garden was full of flowers in colors we had never seen before. While walking, we discussed the names of the flowers, their shapes, and even how we might grow similar ones at home. Observing nature and describing it in English is a powerful way to expand vocabulary and sharpen attention to detail. Talking about home life, last weekend we focused on organizing our living room cabinets. We sorted books, magazines, and small decorations. My husband suggested placing frequently used items on the top shelves. While organizing, we talked about how keeping order makes daily routines easier. Simple projects like this are not only practical, they also create natural opportunities to use English in everyday conversation. Now I want to share a cooking story. My husband found a recipe for a fruit tart, and we decided to try it together. We prepared the dough, arranged the fruit, and baked it carefully. While cooking, we discussed the steps, the ingredients, and even how to present the tart beautifully. Cooking new recipes is a wonderful way to practice teamwork, process language, and food-related vocabulary. Let's talk about neighborhood exploration. Last Thursday, we walked through a street we rarely visit. We noticed small shops, colorful murals, and people walking dogs. My husband described the details of the buildings, while I shared observations about colors and patterns. Exploring new areas helps practice descriptive language, storytelling, and everyday conversation skills. Now let's turn to learning new skills. My friend Daniel invited us to join an online painting workshop. We followed instructions step by step, mixing colors and painting landscapes. While working, we talked about techniques, brush strokes, and color choices. Learning hobbies with friends provides a relaxed environment to practice vocabulary and conversation naturally. Another great way to practice English is shopping locally. Last Saturday, we visited a farmer's market. We bought fresh vegetables, fruits, and homemade bread. While shopping, we compared quality, discussed prices, and planned meals for the week. Local shopping gives you real opportunities to ask questions politely, describe products, and practice everyday English in a natural setting. Now, I want to share a short exercise story. One morning, my husband suggested a jog around the neighborhood. We warmed up, ran for about 20 minutes, and cooled down with stretches. While exercising, we discussed health tips, future fitness goals, and how our bodies felt. Activities like this allow you to practice action vocabulary, descriptive English, and health-related expressions. Talking about weekend adventures, last Sunday we visited a small village known for traditional crafts. We observed weavers making baskets and potters shaping clay. My husband explained some of the techniques, and I described textures, shapes, and colors. Exploring crafts is a fantastic way to learn process vocabulary while sharing observations in English. Now let's discuss meal planning. Last week, we created a weekly plan for breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. We included new recipes, snacks, and even a dessert. While planning, we discussed cooking times, preparation methods, and ingredients. Planning meals together not only makes life easier, it also builds decision-making language and practical vocabulary. Talking about reading, my husband and I recently started another book about famous explorers. We read chapters aloud and then discussed the journeys, challenges, and discoveries. I described the landscapes in my own words, while my husband shared insights from the text. Reading together strengthens comprehension, builds vocabulary, and improves the ability to tell stories naturally in English. Now, let me share a quiet evening moment. We went for a walk along a river path. The water reflected the evening sky and birds flew above us. As we walked, we described the view, shared memories, and even planned future walks. Moments like this are perfect for practicing descriptive storytelling in English. Talking about small home projects, last week we built a simple bookshelf for our study. We measured, cut, and assembled it step by step. While working, we discussed tools, safety, and each stage of the process. Projects like this improve teamwork vocabulary, problem-solving language, and give a strong sense of achievement. Now let's move to helping others. One afternoon, we helped a neighbor carry heavy items up the stairs. While helping, we exchanged stories, talked about our days, and shared advice. Acts of kindness not only strengthen community, they also provide excellent chances to practice social English and polite conversation. Talking about hobbies, last week my husband and I tried sketching again. We drew cups, plants, and small decorations. While sketching, we discussed proportions, shading, and shapes. Creative hobbies like drawing improve observation skills, descriptive vocabulary, and make language practice more enjoyable. Now, I want to share another small celebration. This time, we prepared a special dinner to celebrate a friend's achievement. We decorated the table, cooked together, and shared memories. While preparing, we talked about recipes, presentation, and our favorite moments. Celebrating achievements in this way encourages natural English conversation and strengthens relationships. Talking about exploration, last Sunday we visited a historic street in town. The buildings had unique designs with carved doors and windows. My husband described the architecture, while I talked about colors and materials. Visiting historic places improves descriptive language, observation skills, and storytelling ability. Now, let's return to cooking. Last week, we made simple sandwiches and salads for lunch. While preparing, we discussed ingredients, steps, and presentation. Even quick meals like this give you natural opportunities to practice teamwork and process language in English. Talking about routines, my husband and I recently created a morning schedule. We included stretching, breakfast, reading, and planning the day. While following it, we discussed what worked well and what could be improved. Daily routines are a great way to practice organizational vocabulary and communication skills. Now, let's talk about visiting new places. We recently went to a small cafe with handmade decorations and soft lighting. We ordered tea, admired the interior, and talked about the atmosphere. Visiting cafes provides practice in asking questions politely, describing surroundings, and sharing opinions. Talking about outdoor hobbies, last weekend we tried gardening again. We planted herbs and flowers in pots on our balcony. While working, we discussed watering schedules, sunlight needs, and soil quality. Gardening is a wonderful way to connect with nature while practicing English vocabulary for everyday care and actions. Now let's discuss learning new hobbies. My husband and I tried origami together. We folded paper into small animals and shapes. While folding, we discussed techniques, colors, and patterns. Origami is creative, relaxing, and gives natural opportunities to practice English. And one last story for today. Last Wednesday, we explored a small new cafe in town. The atmosphere was cozy, with wooden tables and small plants in each corner. I ordered a chai latte, and my husband tried a cappuccino. While sitting there, we talked about different kinds of coffee and the importance of taking small breaks during the day. Simple visits like this encourage polite conversation, descriptive vocabulary, and sharing personal opinions in English. Let's start with a breakfast story. Recently, we tried making French toast with fresh fruits. While cooking, my husband taught me how to get the perfect golden color. We also discussed different toppings and flavors to try next time. Cooking together creates natural opportunities to practice vocabulary, teamwork, and descriptive language. Talking about neighborhood walks, last Thursday we explored a route we had never used before. We discovered small streets with colorful houses, small gardens, and friendly neighbors. My husband pointed out architectural details, and I described colors and shapes. Walking in new areas is a great way to practice observation skills, descriptive language, and casual English conversation. Now, let's discuss learning new skills. My friend Lucy invited us to a short online photography workshop. We learned about framing, lighting, and focusing techniques. While practicing at home, we took photos of plants and objects, describing what we saw. Learning creative skills with friends encourages natural conversation and expands vocabulary related to actions, colors, and shapes. Talking about shopping, last Saturday we visited a small market to buy fresh vegetables. We compared prices, checked ripeness, and discussed which items we would use for upcoming meals. Shopping like this is a practical way to practice polite questions, describe items clearly, and make decisions in English naturally. Now I want to share a home exercise story. My husband suggested a short indoor workout using a mat and small weights. We did stretches, squats, and arm exercises. While exercising, we discussed posture, breathing, and motivation. Practicing routines together improves vocabulary for actions, health, and daily routines. Talking about weekend adventures, last Sunday we visited a small museum in town. The museum had exhibitions on local history and traditional crafts. While exploring, my husband explained the historical significance, and I described the objects and decorations. Visiting cultural places helps expand vocabulary, comprehension, and storytelling skills naturally. Now let's talk about meal planning. We created a weekly plan that included breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. While planning, we discussed ingredients, cooking times, and preparation steps. Meal planning together strengthens practical English, decision-making language, and polite discussion skills. Talking about reading, my husband and I recently started a book about famous inventors. We read chapters aloud and shared our opinions about their inventions. We discussed how inventions impacted daily life and how similar ideas could be applied. Reading together improves comprehension, descriptive skills, and vocabulary for storytelling. Now, I want to share a quiet evening walk story. We walked along a river path in the neighborhood. The water reflected the sky, and small birds flew around us. While walking, we described what we saw, talked about previous walks, and planned new ones. Observing nature and discussing it improves descriptive language, observation skills, and everyday English conversation. Talking about home projects, last week we built a small planter box for our balcony. We measured, cut wood, and assembled it carefully. While working, we discussed tools, steps, and safety measures. Small home projects like this improve vocabulary, teamwork, and practical English skills. Now, let's discuss helping others. One afternoon, we assisted a neighbor by carrying heavy boxes into their apartment. While helping, we shared stories, exchanged advice, and talked about daily routines. Acts of kindness provide opportunities to practice social English and polite conversation naturally. Talking about hobbies, last week we tried drawing simple landscapes at home. We drew mountains, rivers, and trees while observing pictures for reference. While sketching, we discussed shapes, colors, and shading techniques. Creative hobbies like drawing improve observation, descriptive skills, and vocabulary while making English practice enjoyable. Now, I want to share a small home celebration. We prepared a special dinner to celebrate a friend's new job. We decorated the table, cooked together, and shared memories. While preparing, we discussed recipes, presentation, and favorite moments. Celebrations like this encourage natural English conversation and strengthen relationships. Talking about local exploration, last Sunday we visited a historic street filled with old houses and shops. We noticed carved doors, old signs, and unique windows. While walking, my husband explained historical facts, and I described shapes, colors, and details. Exploring new places enhances descriptive vocabulary, storytelling, and observation skills. Now, let's talk about cooking simple meals. Last week, we prepared pasta with fresh vegetables. While cooking, we discussed ingredients, steps, and presentation ideas. Simple cooking activities provide natural opportunities to practice English, teamwork, and step-by-step instructions. Talking about daily routines, my husband and I recently created a morning schedule, including stretching, breakfast, reading, and planning. While following it, we discussed what worked well and what could improve efficiency. Planning routines improves vocabulary, communication skills, and encourages natural English practice. Now, I want to share a story about visiting a small local cafe. The cafe was cozy with handmade decorations and soft lighting. We ordered tea, observed the surroundings, and talked about the atmosphere. Visiting new places provides opportunities to describe experiences, ask polite questions, and share opinions in English naturally. Talking about outdoor activities, last weekend we planted small flowers and herbs in our balcony pots. While gardening, we discussed sunlight, watering, and soil quality. Gardening provides vocabulary related to nature, daily routines, and caring for plants while practicing English naturally. Now, let's discuss learning new hobbies. My husband and I tried folding origami figures. We folded paper into animals and objects while talking about techniques, patterns, and colors. Creative hobbies improve attention, vocabulary, and give natural opportunities for conversation in English. Last Monday, we visited a small local flower shop we had never seen before. The shop had a variety of colorful flowers, and the owner explained how to care for them. While choosing flowers, we discussed which colors matched our home and which lasted longer. Bringing flowers home gave us a chance to describe colors, shapes, and scents, improving descriptive English naturally. Talking about home projects, last weekend we reorganized our kitchen shelves. We grouped jars, spices, and utensils and labeled them for convenience. While working, we discussed simple ways to keep the kitchen clean and organized. Small home improvement tasks provide opportunities to practice vocabulary for daily routines and planning. Now, I want to share a story about trying a new dinner recipe. We prepared baked salmon with vegetables. While cooking, my husband explained how to season the fish, and I focused on preparing the vegetables. We discussed flavors, cooking time, and presentation. Trying new recipes encourages teamwork and provides natural opportunities to learn cooking-related vocabulary. Talking about neighborhood walks, last Wednesday we explored a street with small shops and cafes. We noticed wall decorations, street lights, and shop signs. While walking, we described everything we saw and compared it to streets we usually visit. Exploring new streets improves observation skills, descriptive language, and everyday conversation. Now let's talk about learning a new skill. My friend James invited us to try an online creative writing course. We practiced writing short stories and shared them with each other. While doing the exercises, we discussed vocabulary, sentence structure, and ideas for improvement. Learning new skills with friends encourages conversation and improves practical English usage. Talking about shopping, last Friday we visited a local market to buy fresh fruits. We compared colors, textures, and ripeness of apples and oranges. While shopping, we discussed which fruits to include in breakfast and which to use for desserts. Shopping provides practical opportunities to practice polite questions, describe items, and make decisions in English. Now, I want to share a home exercise story. My husband suggested a short stretching session in the living room. We stretched our arms, legs, and backs while discussing techniques and benefits. While exercising, we talked about posture and how stretching reduces stress. Daily exercise routines provide opportunities to practice vocabulary related to health and actions. Finally, talking about weekend trips, last Saturday we visited a small local museum showcasing traditional crafts. We watched artisans making pottery and weaving baskets. While observing, we described shapes, materials, and techniques in English. Exploring local culture improves vocabulary, comprehension, and conversational skills naturally. Let's start with meal planning. Last week, we created a plan for dinners and snacks for the upcoming week. We talked about ingredients, cooking methods, and presentation ideas. Planning meals together encourages practical English use and polite conversation about preferences and choices. Talking about reading, my husband and I recently started a biography about a famous scientist. We read chapters together and discussed their discoveries and challenges. While talking, we shared opinions and described ideas in our own words. Reading together improves comprehension, pronunciation, and the ability to explain experiences clearly in English. Now, I want to share a story about a quiet evening walk. We walked along a small park path surrounded by trees and flowers. Birds were singing and the sun was setting. While walking, we described the scenery, shared past memories, and talked about plans for the week. Observing nature and describing it helps improve vocabulary and descriptive English skills. Talking about home projects, last week we decided to build a small storage box for our balcony. We measured, cut the wood, and assembled the parts carefully. While working, we discussed tools, steps, and how to finish it neatly. Practical projects like this improve teamwork, problem-solving skills, and vocabulary while providing a sense of accomplishment. Now, let's discuss helping others. One afternoon, we helped a neighbor organize their small garden. While assisting, we talked about plants, watering schedules, and sunlight needs. Small acts of kindness provide opportunities to practice social English and descriptive language naturally. Talking about hobbies, last week my husband and I tried drawing simple flowers and leaves at home. We observed pictures and sketched them while discussing shapes, colors, and techniques. Creative hobbies improve attention, vocabulary, and provide natural conversation practice in English. Now, I want to share a story about a small home celebration. We prepared a special dinner to celebrate a family achievement. While cooking, we discussed recipes, presentation, and shared memories. Celebrating small achievements encourages English conversation naturally and helps express feelings politely. Talking about local exploration, last Sunday we visited a small street with historic buildings. We noticed carved doors, old windows, and colorful walls. While walking, my husband explained the history and I described colors, shapes, and patterns. Exploring new places improves observation skills, vocabulary, and storytelling ability. Now, let's talk about cooking simple meals. Last week, we made omelets with fresh vegetables. While cooking, we discussed ingredients, techniques, and presentation. Simple cooking activities provide opportunities to practice English vocabulary, teamwork, and step-by-step instructions. Talking about daily routines, my husband and I recently organized a morning schedule. We included stretching, breakfast, reading, and planning the day. While following it, we discussed what worked well and what could improve efficiency. Planning routines improves vocabulary, communication skills, and encourages English practice. Now, I want to share a story about visiting a small local cafe. The cafe was quiet and cozy with handmade decorations. We ordered tea, observed the atmosphere, and talked about our favorite drinks. Visiting new places provide natural opportunities to describe experiences, ask questions politely, and share opinions in English. Talking about outdoor activities, last weekend we planted small flowers and herbs in balcony pots. While gardening, we discussed sunlight, watering, and soil quality. Gardening helps practice vocabulary related to nature, daily tasks, and caring for plants. Now let's discuss learning new hobbies. My husband and I tried folding paper into small origami animals. While doing it, we discussed patterns, colors, and techniques. Creative hobbies improve attention, vocabulary, and provide natural conversation practice in English. Last Tuesday, we visited a local park we had never explored. The park had a small pond with ducks swimming and children playing nearby. While walking around, we discussed the sounds of nature and the way sunlight reflected on the water. Observing and describing surroundings improves descriptive vocabulary and helps practice storytelling in English. Talking about home life, last weekend we reorganized our bedroom closet. We sorted clothes by type and color, folded them neatly, and put unused items in boxes for storage. While working, we discussed tips to keep the closet tidy and how to save space. Small organization tasks provide practical English practice and help build vocabulary for daily life. Now, I want to share a story about trying a new lunch recipe. We prepared a vegetable stir-fry with noodles. While cooking, my husband explained the correct way to chop vegetables, and I focused on mixing sauces. We discussed flavors, cooking times, and presentation. Cooking together encourages teamwork. conversation, and practical vocabulary use in English. Talking about neighborhood walks. Last Thursday, we took a quiet street lined with small gardens and trees. We noticed flowers, birds, and unique gates. While walking, we described what we saw, compared it to our usual routes, and shared memories of previous walks. Exploring new areas helps improve observation, descriptive skills, and casual English conversation. Now, let's talk about learning new skills. My friend Sarah invited us to an online class on simple watercolor painting. We followed instructions, mixed colors, and created landscapes. While painting, we discussed techniques, brushstrokes, and color combinations. Learning creative skills improves vocabulary, encourages conversation, and strengthens English expression naturally. Talking about shopping, last Saturday we visited a small local market to buy fresh bread and vegetables. We compared prices, checked freshness, and discussed what meals we could prepare. Shopping provides practical opportunities to ask polite questions, describe items, and practice decision-making in English. Now, I want to share a story about home exercise. My husband suggested a short indoor cycling session. We warmed up, followed a video tutorial, and discussed our energy levels and progress. Exercising together improves vocabulary for actions, health, and daily routines, while encouraging natural English conversation. Talking about weekend trips, last Sunday we visited a small village with traditional markets. We observed artisans making handmade crafts and talked about the materials and techniques they used. My husband described shapes and textures, while I shared observations about colors and patterns. Exploring local culture strengthens vocabulary and storytelling skills. Now, let's discuss meal planning again. Last week, we prepared a plan for lunches and dinners for the upcoming week. We discussed ingredients, cooking methods, and flavor combinations. Planning meals together improves practical vocabulary, decision-making skills, and polite conversation about preferences. Talking about reading, my husband and I recently chose a travel book. We read chapters aloud and described locations, scenery, and cultural experiences. While discussing, we compared them with places we have visited. Reading together strengthens comprehension, descriptive language, and the ability to narrate experiences in English. Now, I want to share a story about a quiet evening walk. We walked along a neighborhood path with small trees and flowers. Birds were singing and the sun was setting. While walking, we described the surroundings, shared memories, and discussed our plans for the week. Nature walks help improve vocabulary, observation, and descriptive English skills. Talking about home projects, last week we built a small rack for the balcony to hold potted plants. We measured, cut the wood, and assembled it carefully. While working, we discussed tools, steps, and finishing touches. Practical projects provide opportunities to practice teamwork, vocabulary, and problem-solving in English. Now, let's discuss helping others. One afternoon, we helped a neighbor set up chairs for a small family gathering. While assisting, we talked about furniture arrangement, decorations, and shared small stories. Acts of help provide natural opportunities to practice social English and polite conversation. Talking about hobbies, last week we tried drawing simple fruits and vegetables at home. We observed shapes, colors, and textures while sketching. While drawing, we discussed techniques, proportions, and shading. Creative hobbies improve attention, vocabulary, and provide opportunities for natural English conversation. Now, I want to share a story about a small home celebration. We prepared a special dinner to celebrate my husband's promotion at work. While cooking, we discussed menu ideas, presentations, and shared memories. Celebrations encourage natural English conversation and help express emotions politely. Talking about local exploration, last Sunday we visited a small historic street filled with old houses and shops. We noticed details like doors, windows, and wall patterns. While walking, my husband explained history, and I described colors, shapes, and decorations. Exploring new places improves observation, descriptive language, and storytelling skills in English. Let's start with cooking simple meals. Last week, we made baked potatoes with a fresh salad on the side. While cooking, we discussed ingredients, preparation steps, and presentation. Simple cooking activities provide natural opportunities to practice English vocabulary and teamwork. Talking about daily routines, my husband and I recently created a morning schedule that includes light exercise, breakfast, reading, and planning. While following it, we discussed what worked well and what could improve efficiency. Planning routines helps practice vocabulary, communication skills, and natural English conversation. Now, I want to share a story about visiting a small local cafe. The cafe had soft lighting, wooden cables, and potted plants. We ordered tea, observed the surroundings, and discussed the atmosphere. Visiting new places encourages ascriptive language, polite questions, and sharing opinions naturally in English. Talking about outdoor activities, last weekend we planted small flowers in balcony pots. While planting, we discussed sunlight, watering, and soil type. Gardening improves vocabulary related to nature, daily tasks, and caring for plants. Now, let's discuss learning new hobbies. My husband and I tried making simple clay figures. We shaped animals and small objects while discussing techniques, textures, and colors. Creative hobbies improve attention, vocabulary, and provide opportunities for natural English conversation. Last Monday, we explored a small farmer's market in our neighborhood. There were fresh vegetables, fruits, and handmade bread. While walking around, we discussed which items to buy and how to use them in meals. I chose tomatoes and cucumbers, and my husband picked fresh herbs. Markets like this are perfect for practicing vocabulary, asking polite questions, and making small decisions in English. Talking about home projects, last weekend we decided to fix a small shelf in our study room. The shelf was loose, so we tightened screws, measured the space carefully, and painted it afterward. While working, we discussed the steps, tools, and colors. Small DIY projects like this improve vocabulary, practical English usage, and teamwork skills. Now, I want to share a story about cooking a new dessert. We made a simple fruit parfait with layers of yogurt, berries, and granola. While preparing it, my husband suggested using honey for sweetness, and I arranged the layers carefully. Cooking together allows practice of English for instructions, ingredients, and flavors. Talking about local walks, last Wednesday we visited a quiet street lined with old trees. The shade was cool and birds were chirping. While walking, we described the trees, leaves, and flowers. We also talked about previous walks and places we want to explore next. Observing nature and narrating experiences strengthens descriptive vocabulary and conversation skills. Now, let's talk about learning a new hobby. My friend Emma invited us to an online knitting workshop. We learned basic stitches and practiced together. Later, my husband and I decided to explore a small library nearby that we had never visited. The library had shelves filled with books on science, history, and art. While walking through the aisles, we discussed interesting titles and authors. I picked up a book on photography, and my husband chose one about nature. Visiting libraries helps improve vocabulary, reading skills, and the ability to talk about interests in English. Talking about home projects, last weekend we installed a small shelf in the kitchen to hold spices. We measured the wall, drilled holes, and carefully placed the shelf. While working, we discussed which spices to keep on the top and bottom shelves. Small home projects improve vocabulary related to tools, actions, and teamwork while allowing natural English practice. Now, I want to share a story about cooking a new dinner recipe. We tried making baked chicken with roasted vegetables. While preparing, my husband explained how to season the chicken evenly, and I focused on chopping the vegetables. Cooking together encourages conversation, vocabulary for ingredients and actions, and descriptive language for flavors. Talking about neighborhood walks, last Wednesday we explored a quiet street lined with small fountains and trees. There were children playing and birds singing. While walking, we described the scenery, compared it with other streets, and shared stories from past walks. Observing nature and describing it improves descriptive skills, storytelling, and casual conversation in English. Now, let's talk about learning a new skill. My friend Laura invited us to an online calligraphy workshop. We practiced writing letters and small phrases using different pens and colors. While practicing, we discussed techniques, patterns, and ways to improve. Learning creative skills encourages natural English conversation and helps expand vocabulary related to arts and hobbies. Talking about shopping, last Friday we visited a small fruit market. We looked at apples, oranges, and bananas, comparing colors, freshness, and prices. While shopping, we discussed which fruits were best for breakfast and snacks. Shopping helps practice English for practical situations, polite questions, and decision-making. Now, I want to share a story about home exercise. My husband suggested we try a short morning jogging session around our neighborhood. We warmed up, jogged for 10 minutes, and then did stretches. While jogging, we talked about breathing techniques, pace, and motivation. Exercise sessions help practice vocabulary for health, actions, and daily routines. Talking about weekend trips, last Saturday we visited a nearby small lake. The area was calm and ducks were swimming. We described the water, plants, and surroundings. My husband pointed out interesting features, and I shared observations about colors and textures. Visiting natural places improves descriptive vocabulary, observation skills, and storytelling in English. Now, let's discuss meal planning. Last week, we created a plan for lunches and dinners for the upcoming week. We discussed ingredients, preparation methods, and flavors. Planning meals improves practical English, teamwork, and polite discussion about preferences. Talking about reading, my husband and I recently started a book about famous explorers. We read chapters together and discussed the journeys, challenges, and discoveries. While talking, we described the locations and shared opinions about the events. Reading together improves comprehension, descriptive language, and the ability to narrate experiences. Now, I want to share a story about an evening walk. We walked along a quiet street with small gardens. The air was fresh and the sunset was beautiful. While walking, we described the trees, flowers, and sounds we heard. We also shared small memories of past walks. Walking and describing surroundings improves observation skills and descriptive English naturally. Now, talking about home projects, last week we painted a small wooden box to store craft supplies. We discussed colors, brush techniques, and finishing touches. While working, we practice vocabulary for tools, colors, and actions. Projects like this help improve practical English and teamwork skills. Now, let's discuss helping others. One morning, we helped a neighbor carry a small table into their house. While assisting, we shared small stories, talked about furniture placement, and exchanged ideas for organizing space. Helping others provides natural opportunities to practice polite conversation and social English. Talking about hobbies, last week we tried painting small clay pots with designs. While painting, we discussed patterns, colors, and techniques. Creative hobbies improve attention, descriptive skills, and vocabulary while making English practice enjoyable. Now, I want to share a story about a small home celebration. We prepared a special dinner to celebrate my husband completing a project at work. While cooking, we discussed recipes, presentation, and memories from past celebrations. Celebrations provide natural opportunities for English conversation, storytelling, and expressing emotions politely. Talking about local exploration, last Sunday we visited a street with unique small shops and handmade decorations. We noticed colors, designs, and patterns. While walking, my husband explained details about the architecture, and I described what I observed. Exploring new places improves descriptive language, vocabulary, and storytelling skills. Now, let's talk about cooking simple meals. Last week, we made vegetable stir-fry with rice. While cooking, we discussed ingredients, preparation, and presentation. Simple cooking activities provide opportunities to practice English vocabulary, teamwork, and step-by-step instructions. Talking about daily routines, my husband and I recently planned a morning schedule, including stretching, breakfast, reading, and organizing the day. While following it, we discussed what worked well and what could improve. Creating routines encourages practical English practice, communication skills, and natural conversation. Now, I want to share a story about visiting a local cafe. The cafe was quiet, cozy, and decorated with small plants and pictures. We ordered tea, observed decorations, and discussed our favorite drinks. Visiting new places provides natural opportunities for descriptive language, polite questions, and sharing opinions in English. Talking about outdoor activities, last weekend we planted small flowers and herbs in balcony pots. We discussed soil, sunlight, and watering schedules. Gardening helps practice vocabulary related to nature, daily care, and actions while improving descriptive English. Now, let's discuss learning new hobbies. My husband and I tried creating small origami figures. We folded paper into animals and objects while discussing patterns, shapes, and colors. Creative hobbies provide opportunities to practice vocabulary, descriptive language, and natural conversation. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of English Without Limit. As you can see, English practice doesn't have to be limited to textbooks or formal lessons. Everyday activities, whether it's cooking, walking in your neighborhood, gardening, visiting local markets, or even enjoying a quiet cafe, can become rich opportunities to build your vocabulary, improve your descriptive language, and strengthen your conversational skills. Remember, the key is to observe, describe, and share your experiences in English. Talk about what you see, what you do, and what you feel. Engage your friends, family, or even yourself in these conversations. Little daily practices like these, repeated consistently, will help you think in English more naturally and speak with confidence. Hobbies, home projects, walks, and celebrations aren't just enjoyable, they are practical classrooms for English. The more you connect English to your life, the easier it becomes to express your thoughts clearly, ask polite questions, and share stories fluently. So, take a moment today to try one small activity in English. Observe, describe, and talk about it. Whether it's preparing a meal, planting a flower, or simply walking down a quiet street, use these moments to practice, explore, and grow. Thank you for joining me on this episode of English Without Limit. Keep practicing, keep observing, and keep speaking. Every small effort counts. I'm Julia, and I'll see you in the next episode.